may not have come home last night, but the Brits who travelled to see the match will be starting to make their way back home now. Two Brits who made the journey to see the Lions lose in Berlin, the PM, Keir Starmer, and the Culture Secretary, Lisa Nandy.
And Lisa joins us now. Before we get on to other issues, I won't say more serious issues, because for some, there's nothing more serious than football. But how do you feel this morning? Sore head, exhausted, heartbroken?
So I haven't managed to go to bed yet, so apologies if I can't string a sentence together. But we definitely don't have sore heads. Both the Prime Minister and I were on our best behaviour. We were sitting very close to His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales and Prince George, so there was absolutely no bad behaviour from us, although the Prime Minister was clearly very agitated towards the end of the game, being a huge football fan.
So are you saying you haven't had a drink?
I managed to have one beer after the game. I thought I was allowed that on the way home, but it's been a very emotional roller coaster. Not just the last 24 hours, but for those of us in the new government, the last 10 days have been utterly surreal, and there's been so much to do. The reason that I'm out this morning on no sleep is because I think, having felt the energy and the power in that stadium last night, we're really determined that, trophy or no trophy, that there is a proper legacy from Euro 2028, and that young people all around this country will know that they have got the government behind them as they pursue their dreams of becoming the next Lions or Lionesses.
You talk about the slight feeling of detachment that you're going through. I mean, full disclosure, I've known you, Lisa, since you were a little baby, because my wife Judy and I used to work on the news programme at Granada, and your mum was our producer. So I remember seeing you being pushed around the newsroom in your carry cot on wheels.
Did she have a ministerial vibe when she was in her pushchair, Richard?
If somebody had said, looking at you there, about 6 months old, I think you were when I first set eyes on you, that one day you'd be in the cabinet and you'd be sitting next to the British Prime Minister watching an international game.
Behind the Prince of Wales.
Would have been quite funny. How does it feel? I mean, more specifically, having been in opposition for so long, how are you feeling after a week or so with actual levers of power in your hot little hand?
Well, first of all, you've completely ruined the gravitas that I was hoping to convey on this show, so thanks very much for that, Richard.
Well, we're all babies once. Come on, we were all babies once. Anyway, go on, how is it for you?
It's utterly unbelievable. I think the mood from the current cabinet, the new cabinet, is less one of jubilation and more one of a really heavy sense of responsibility. I was elected in 2010 along with the new Chancellor, the new Business Secretary, the new Education Secretary. We've had a ringside seat to watch what Britain's gone through over the last 14 years. And there was a moment when I walked into the department and opened this great big red folder that, and the first thing that I saw on it was for decision. And I thought, my goodness me, 14 years in, and we can finally take some decisions that start to fix things for people in this country and put people in parts of the country that have felt utterly forgotten back at the centre of their own national story. That is going to be the privilege of my life, and it's still something that is difficult to take in.
I bet it is. So, look, 10 days in, you're trying to put the rattle down that Richard remembers you holding and hold the lever of power. He does it to us all, Lisa, don't worry. He makes us all feel like that. He's seen it all in his life, Richard Madeley. But look, extraordinary events on Saturday, for us Saturday evening, seeing an attempt at assassination of former President Trump. We know that, I think Keir Starmer has spoken to him, hasn't he? Are there any other steps that you're going to take? Because it's not always been that the Labour Party has seen eye to eye with President Trump, is it?
Well, I was really pleased that the Prime Minister spoke to President Trump as we touched down in Berlin. It was at the Prime Minister's request. He was very keen to convey not just his sympathies, but his utter condemnation about the political violence that President Trump had been subjected to, and that caused others to lose their lives or be injured in the course of that, because it sets the tone for this government. We have seen a very divisive time over the last decade and a half, not just in the United States, but here in the UK as well. And I said when I was appointed as Culture Secretary to the team of civil servants when I first met them, that the era of culture wars has to be over. Rather than finding ways to divide ourselves from one another, we need to come together as a country, find the things we have in common, support one another and move forwards. There is a better country out there than the politics that we've had, and we have to lead it.
I understand it is, but David Lammy said of Donald Trump, and these are strong words, Trump is not only a woman-hating, neo-Nazi sympathising sociopath, he's also a profound threat to the international order that's been the foundation of Western progress for so long. It's because I cherish and champion those values that, and this was back in 2018, that he was going to march against Donald Trump. You know, I think people have become familiar with using very strong language against Donald Trump. But we've seen here in the UK, haven't we, how strong language, you know, robust debate, fine, but it seems to ignite something that we don't want.
Well, I really agree with you. I've been an MP during the course of some very angry moments in British politics. We had the independence referendum in Scotland. We had endless rows about Brexit that became very polarising across the whole of the UK and particularly in England. We've found all these different ways to divide ourselves from one another. And I reflected on it a few years ago, standing in a debate in the House of Commons, where I was hearing Remain supporting and Leave supporting MPs hurling insults at each other across the floor, calling each other traitors. It's no surprise then that when we walk out onto the streets of Britain that we hear that language reflected back to us. And that's why I was so pleased that the Prime Minister, his first instinct was to get on the phone to President Trump to express our utter condemnation.
That's a fair point, but just to come back to Kate's question, I mean, David Lammy did say that. It's a bit like Biden's terrible performance in the debate. You can't unsee what happened there, and Lammy can't unsay what he said about Trump. It's there, it's on the record, and he's our Foreign Secretary. What's that going to do to British-American relations, as is very likely Trump becomes president?
Well, look, he's never denied that he said it, but he has had a marked shift in tone since he's been appointed as Shadow Foreign Secretary, in recognition that Britain's interests will always be in having a strong relationship with the United States. And he's been over in the United States in the last 10 days talking not just to Democrats, but to Republicans as well. We've done a huge amount of work to build bridges across the political divide because that's in Britain's interests. And I think we've all said things in politics, I certainly have, over the last decade and a half, through this very divisive, difficult time, that we've, in hindsight, reflected on and thought we could have expressed ourselves better. But our interest as the new government is firmly in taking some of the heat out of this very toxic political debate that we've had, shedding far more light, far less heat, and showing leadership in the way that we conduct ourselves towards each other, but also particularly towards political opponents that we disagree with. And
talking about dialling down the rhetoric, what's your instinct about Donald Trump? He's talking now about unity and unifying America. Do you feel that what's happened to him, being a merciful escape and release, at the same time has had a sort of a chastening effect on him, and that it may actually dictate and direct the way he speaks and behaves from now on, and modify his language?
Well, I'm not sure about that. I haven't spoken directly to President Trump myself, and certainly it seemed that his response to the horrendous assassination attempt was to utterly reject that would change the way that he behaves in politics. I have to say, as somebody who has disagreed with the way that he behaves and some of the things that he said and stood for, I do think it's important that politicians of any political party, any political views, feel free to stand up for the things that they care about without feeling intimidated. We saw it in our election campaign just recently. We had Nigel Farage having milkshakes thrown at him. We had colleagues of mine like Jess Phillips, Shabana Mahmood, Jonathan Ashworth, hounded and intimidated, threatened and abuse thrown at them. There's no place for that in our politics, whoever it's subjected towards. And as a new government, we firmly intend to model the sort of leadership and behaviours that we want other people to see.
Well, good to talk to you this morning. Thanks very much indeed. Maybe it's time to go and get a kip. I don't know. Have a few hours sleep. Thanks very much indeed.
Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.